Hey friends, it's Tammy. Welcome back to my channel. I am so happy you're here. Today I'm going to be making a Bejeweled Angel, and I'm starting with a little 4x6 cradle board canvas or panel, and I am painting it a mixture of phthalo blue and quinacidone violet, and I just kind of want a dark blue. I could put a couple of layers on that, use my heat gun in between to start that. Now I'm using Crackle Paste, and I'm just using an inexpensive palette knife and applying it to the board over top of the painted area. And just clean those edges up, make sure they're nice and clean and smooth. And you can use your heat gun to speed up the process of the drying time on this. You do want to give it a little bit of a break and let it cool down, and then you can start with it again, but you don't want it to get overly hot and blister. So it has a really nice crackle effect, a deep crackle effect, and in the cracks you can see that dark background under it. You can even carve into it when it's still wet if you really want to pronounce those that dark background. So what I've done is I've just gathered a bunch of jewelry pieces and stones from my stash that I have available, and through old jewelry bits and buttons and such that I've been given or found in various places and purchased from either Hobby Lobbies or Michael or your local thrift stores. And I want to make a silver and blue angel, and so I'm just taking the bits of the pieces and I am trying to design the initial parts of it. So for the head, I basically have a silver button that's concaved in the middle, and I'm using another standard button that's just a domed piece for the head, and it makes it look like a halo over top of the angel head. I also have what are, I call them toggle buttons, and they're just silver two-piece clasps that come apart, and I've fashioned those in the way of the wings. And then I'm just playing around with all these other bits and pieces that I have, and I'm trying to fit it in. I've got loose stones, I've got larger round buttons and brooches and beads and such, and these are little starred beads that I'm putting over top of the silver halo just to add a little bling bling up there. Nice and sparkly. And then I'm always going to the jewelry aisle and picking up strands of beads for various projects, and so I've gone in and forged some of those out of my stash, and we're just seeing what works. You'll just see me put things on and take things off, and the body now is consisting of two large heart-shaped buttons. One heart is upright and the other one is upside down, and that basically has formed the shape of the angel body. And then I'm just deciding to add stones around that. I have done a recent one with nothing but jewelry on a gold crackled surface, and it was really pretty. You know, you just have to think outside of the box with this, and you can go to yard sales or thrift stores and really buy a lot of this old jewelry and turn it into something that is really estate worthy, or it's just a keepsake. Using your mother's old jewelry or your own old jewelry, or grandmother's pieces that are just sitting in a jewelry box somewhere. You know, you could create something lovely and have something worth showing off. I've used earrings for wings. I've used, you know, you just want to kind of look at the shapes on these and decide whether or not the shape will fit for what you're trying to do with it, and make it happen. I've even cut earrings apart and used double hooped earrings for various things in my work. It's a lot of fun. It's like putting a puzzle together, and they're so unique. So I'm having a hard time here in deciding what I'm going to use for the skirt, and I'm just not liking anything that I have on my table. And so I, right there, went and forged some more. Excuse me. And I'm using these crystal points from Dryer Days Art Studio, and that is really kind of inspiring me to go with that as the bottom of the dress or skirt of the angel. Now you can glue these things down. You can certainly do that. The crackle paste really needs to be sealed in place, because it can flake off, and you don't want to go through all of this and use some piece of jewelry that's meaningful to you and have the piece start, you know, breaking off. So you want to seal it either with some polyacrylic or something that's going to help it remain permanent to your piece. All right, so I've played around and I feel like I'm pretty happy here. I've got a little bit of cobalt blue glass glitter also from Dryer Days Art Studio, and I'm just kind of tucking that in here or there. I like it. So I'm just going, and I also have some cobalt colored seed beads, and you can just tuck those in and around if there's any wide openings that you want to cover. And then I'm just going to kind of clear up my space here, and you'll see what happens next. Now dealing with these tiny little bits and bobs, they can be hard to manage, especially if they're loose stones, and it seems like if you put one thing down, the next thing gets off kilter. And so it really does take a little bit of time, and you can use some Gorilla Glue or E6000 glue, which, you know, something clear, and affix it onto your surface. It will be fine. But again, if you do that, you want to make sure you've sealed that crackle paste down first. In this case, I had not done that. And I'm going to plan on resining this piece, and so that's the reason why I decided not to worry with using a polyacrylic. So I'm just going to clean up around. I'm pretty happy with where I'm at with this, and well, I've decided now that while I was cleaning up, that maybe I can add a couple more of these crystal point chips up at the top, just to add another little bit of element of bling, and just put it in and around the halo. Sometimes I think the smaller pieces are harder to do than the ones that are a little bit larger, like an 8x10. This is a 4x6 cradle board, and so it's harder. My pieces, a lot of them are larger pieces, and but at the end, I think this turned out quite pretty. I think the color choices were excellent. All right, so now I'm just going to remove everything, have an idea of what I'm looking for. I'm just going to wipe my board clean. You're probably cringing right now, but it's okay. And I'm just going to use some UV inhibitor. Let me say that again. I'm going to be using some resin that has an additional UV inhibitor in it. And I'm going to mix up about 2 tablespoons in total. It definitely will not take that much. It won't even take half that much. And I'm going to go ahead and cover my board after I do a good mixing. So this is I'm just using the Amazing Clear Cast Plus and by Alumilite, and it's a pretty good resin. It's not bad. You definitely need to use your PPE for this particular resin. And make sure all of your part A and part B are equally measured. Stir for at least 3 minutes. Now this is on an elevated speed now, so it looks like I'm whipping it to death, but I promise you I'm going at a slow pace to try to alleviate as many bubbles as I possibly can. But I'm trying really hard to make sure that all the components of the two parts of resin and hardener are incorporated very nicely. Scrape those sides, scrape that bottom, and scrape your stir stick as well. So it should be done a minimum of 3 minutes. I believe I have about 35 to 40 minute work time with this particular resin. I won't need that much work time. It's a gracious plenty. At this point, I apologize if you heard that squelch. That was the scanner in our house going off. At any rate, again, make sure that you have everything very well incorporated. And you just want to find something to elevate that board off your surface. If you feel like the resin might pour down over the edges, then you want to go ahead and tape those sides. I've been doing this resin thing for a bit, so I'm pretty confident that I can keep it on top of the board. And I'm just going to apply what I think I'm going to need and spread that about. And I'm just thinning it out, popping any bubbles that are on the surface, and then just using my hand to make sure everything is where it needs to be. I decided that I wanted to try and add some silver leaf. You really can't see it up next to the silver background. I thought that it would be a little bit brighter against the background. You can see it slightly, but it's not a ton. I thank you so much for watching, guys. It really means a whole lot to me that you're here. If you aren't yet subscribed and this video and the types of videos that I provide bring value to you, I'd really love it if you would subscribe. For those who continue to be here and support me, thank you so, so much. I really am so grateful for each and every one of you. I'd love it if you take a little time and leave me a comment. Tell me where you're from. Tell me if there's anything in particular you'd like to see in the future. And let me know what type of ideas that you might have for making Christmas pieces. So we've done a Christmas tree. I believe that was my last video. We've done angels in a different way. I have done a bell, and I'm thinking what more we can do, but any advice you can give me, I would love it. So I'm just recreating what I had on my board before I laid the resin down. And the reason why I didn't just pour the resin over top of all of the beads is because all of these are faceted, and once you pour resin on top of it, resin is basically a type of plastic, and it really removes those facets and covers them up, and then therefore it takes all of the sparkle in these faceted stones away, and it kind of mutes the point of using them if you're going to do that. So you have to lay them in the resin rather than pouring the resin over them. But again, you can certainly just, like I said, not use resin. Just seal that crackle onto your surface and then use a strong glue to adhere your pieces to the board. And it will be just as pretty. I have a couple of little tools that I'm using. It really does come in handy to have something small that can help your fingers try to manipulate these stones. At this point, my hands are in resin, so they're slippery. And I have this little silicone tool here that helped me to guide the smaller stones in between the larger ones and get them where I want them to be. And so you want to have something handy to do that with. And here's what it looks like.